aren't right. And that's the problem. Now, Titan says that the white voters, the younger white voters, have gradually shifted towards the GOP. It's a long-term battle, and Rome wasn't built in a day. Yes, but is that 100% true? And is there more reaching out that can be done by the freedom and liberty people? All right, Titan, you just said put my big point. Titan, call in. Call in, because what you're saying doesn't make sense. You can call in. I'll give you the number. It's 214-646-1604. That's 214-646-1604. Titan, feel free to call in. Feel free to call in. We've got 15 minutes left. Call in. I'm curious what you mean by that statement. Vicky also makes a very, very good point, which is I always thought of Rush as the Howard Stern of the crazy political radio. That's messaging. Titan just said it's the chat room. Context gets better. All right. All right, Titan. Here you go. You want to explain the context? 214-646-1604. That's 214-646-1604. There's the number, Titan. Call in. I'm curious what you have to say. I really am curious what you have to say. And, Boston Randy also makes a point here in saying the big thing about Russia that those who don't subscribe to the conservative thinking hear Russia's comments and accept it for the party line. Yes, exactly. I believe we have Titan here. Titan, are you there?
Yes, is this Domino's Pizza?
Yes, it is Domino's Pizza.
Awesome. I'd like a large. Okay, yeah, I'm here. Thanks for having me.
So, yes, thank you for calling
How can I clarify, Taylor?
I'm kind of curious because you make the point. You made the comment about put your big boy pants on. What do you mean by that? What do you mean when you say that?
Hold on, you're talking about Rush here, so I'm trying to get my own context, if you don't mind. It's been 3 minutes. Memory's not so good nowadays. Okay, so it's Rush. Oh, it's just overall complaints about Rush, and it's like, okay, you're not say like any host. You're not going to say everything you want to hear. Mark Levin says things that I'd rather he didn't the way he says it. But ratings don't lie in my book, and he's number one by a country mile. And anybody even on the left would dream that their wildest dreams like to have his rating. So I'm trying to figure out what the bashing is. What's the point of the bashing?
But see, here's the question, though. Here's the question that has to be answered here. And I can't answer it. I don't think you can answer it. And turn down your radio, Titan.
I'm taking the speaker.
I always wanted to say that, by the way. I always wanted to say that.
Well, when you take it off, it's probably a speaker then, huh?
Yeah. Which is, who are these listeners? Who are the ones who are listeners? Well, who are the ones who are listening to Rush or Mark Levin or me or Mark Davis here locally in Dallas? Are they people who are automatically going to agree with him as it is? Are they, people who are, are they the same people who will sit there and, they're watching Rush, they're listening to Rush, they're also watching Fox, they're also, if those are the people who are listening to Rush, and you have that very, very small percentage who are interested in finding out what he has to say, but the majority of your audience are the quote-unquote ditto heads, then how are you reaching out?
I'm trying to figure out what the... Can you clarify what's the question?
Yes, I will, because I kind of lost... I admit, I kind of lost my own
okay,
conversation.
Let me try to clarify on the spot here. You're saying he just preaches to the choir and doesn't attempt to say, let me bring in new listeners by phrasing things differently or finding different topics, or what is that you're saying?
Yeah, is it possible that you and I don't know this because we don't have access to everybody's radio.
Right.
But if he's only preaching to the choir, and yeah, there are people, I mean, there's nothing wrong with choir preaching all the time. But if he's only preaching to the choir, how is that expanding freedom and liberty?
It may not be, but I'm going to answer it this way, which is what you might not want to hear, or the listeners you might not want to hear. Rush is a business first and foremost. His job is not to sell candidates, sell conservatism, sell products because he gets paid to pitch them. But his first job is to get radio listeners and take it from there. So that's my answer.
Okay.
He's in a business.
No, that makes sense. Something that the Washington Post made a comment. This was in 2009, which is his audience varies between 30 million and say 14 million, or about 14.2 million to about 29 million. And this depends on the people who you talk to. Right? This depends on the people who you talk to. Felix PewDiePie has over 30 million subscribers. Glozell has a bunch of subscribers who aren't your normal, everyday listener or everyday politico. They aren't like you and I who pay attention to politics, right? If he's reaching out to those who aren't paying attention to politics, shouldn't the people who are political, shouldn't they reach out to the non-political person too? That's my question. And Titan, thanks for calling in. I really appreciate it. Always appreciate your comments and your and your opinions. No, I always appreciate them. So thanks for calling in, and thank you for listening to this week's edition to Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. It should also be pointed out, Brian said that choir had several million people stay home in 2012 almost solely because Romney was the candidate. Okay. I would also like to point out, Fishy has pointed this out before, and I will point this out too, is that is that Romney got more votes than McCain. Romney got more votes than McCain. So that should say something. Fishy in the chat room just said we need to convince people they already agree with us. Exactly. And that's the question, is how do you convince them? That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, is how do you convince voters, potential voters, how do you convince them that they agree with the candidate who got who happens to be saying that they agree or that they believe in freedom and liberty? How do you communicate that? That's the question which has to be figured out. By the way, Titan, you are wrong in saying that McCain had more votes than Romney. I'm looking at the results right now. McCain had 59,948,323 in 2008, while Romney had 60,933,500 voters. So that's different. It also should be noted, and this I did find very interesting, is that in 2008, Obama had almost 70 million votes. In 2012, he had almost 66 million. Should be pointed out. Both Roman and Vicky have pointed out that it's not convincing, it's educating. It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. You do have to convince and educate. And that's actually why I'm a big fan of Rand Paul, because you see him going to your non-traditional avenues. You still see that. And I find that, fantastic that he's willing to go to the non-traditional avenues to discuss with people. Something else that I will point out looking at the bottom few vote totals of this. Bob Barr got 500,000 votes. Gary Johnson got 1.2 million votes. So even if these are the Libertarian candidates, so even if the Gary Johnson voters voted for Mitt Romney, he still would have lost. Mitt Romney still would have lost. So I want to point that out. The other thing that I found interesting is that you did have about 2 million less people vote in 2012 versus 2008. I found that interesting. So, if you are interested in calling in or weighing in on the discussion, we are about to wrap up this edition of Saturday Night Cigar Lounge here on Vigilant Liberty Radio. If you want to weigh in on the discussion, feel free to... Thank you, Mariah Fewer. Thank you. You can tell Mariah is a writer. Or a grammatarian. Because she said fewer. Fishy then weighed in with the exact same comment. Mariah, it's okay to be a grammar Nazi. It really is. It is okay to be a grammar Nazi. If you want to weigh in on this, you can tweet me at EYE Desert Blog. That is at EYE Desert Blog. I'm going to change it at some point. We are going to put a poll up on VLR about what I should change it to.